do that, and then we're gonna go to visit our friend Guardian Wolf.
Hang on a second here.
Cherokee Indian, he works for Shauna.
Microphone on, so you're live. Maybe or take that.
Ronnie, can you hear us? Ronnie? They can't hear us.
I can hear you guys. I just can't see anyone.
I don't think Ronnie can hear us.
Just hold on 1 second. Ask my state. Here, need you. Citations.
So I just texted Ronnie.
We're gonna get started, we're live.
Ronnie doesn't seem to hear us. Can you hear us now, Ronnie? Can you hear us?
Tuesday, July 9th, Tuesday, September 18th.
It does sound like there's some sort of something's going on in the background. There's like almost like a news feed.
How's that?
Much better. Totally different.
Ronnie, you're muted. Can you hear us? Yes, you can, but you're on mute, that's fine. I just want to check, we have two members of the public here. I just want to check, you're both muted. Ron Kopnicki, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you and I can see you.
So this is the July 11th meeting of the legal committee. I'm going to begin with attendance. Here in the room, we have Morris, Jenny is here, Dominic is here, Ronnie is online, Crystal is also online, Tom DiPietro is here. I do not see Linda Fennell.
She's here.
Oh, okay. Linda's here. Okay, so we have a quorum. We have 4 items on the agenda. So we have 4 items on the agenda today that I want to try and get to send to the full council. As you know, this committee does not vote on passing things. We work on them and then send them to the full council. The retail law, we've been working on for a while to make revisions to that. Hopefully tonight's version will be the version that goes to the council. We also updated the film law. Both of those were updated based on input from the business community. We have a new item tonight that came up, I guess, 2 months ago at the full council relating to tethering of dogs and safeguarding pets. And then we also have a report that we received from Creighton Manning regarding speed limit reductions. So I think since some of it's pretty much old business, We should be able to get through this. I do not like meetings to go beyond an hour, so we'll try and keep to that. I'm going to begin with the retail law. Pull that up. So the version that we posted, Jenny has been working on this with the business community. The version that we posted has some highlights and track changes to make it easier for us to focus on what's new. What was added in this one in yellow highlight was intent and purpose. General purpose of the formula retail standards are to regulate the location and operation of formula retail and to maintain and preserve the community's character, the city's unique historic aesthetic, residents' quality of life, and vitality of small entrepreneurial businesses. So do we have any issues with that language? Okay. Then the other piece that we have to resolve, see, I'm trying to see if there's any other, yeah, the certificates. So we're putting a process in place whereby a business, a new business opening. This would include if there's a change from, it's the same location, but there's a new tenant. It doesn't transfer to the next tenant. Every new business opening has to apply for a business certificate. I talked to the clerk's office and they see no issue with being the repository for businesses completing and submitting their form to get a business certificate. And they will then keep that on file, and also I think we would be sending it also to code enforcement, so that if in the event that somebody needs a permit, they would put information in hand that they have that certificate. So those are the main changes. Do we have any questions or concerns? There's a Teams meeting going.
No, Margaret, I have no comments. It looks like we've made all the changes that we've been working on, so.
Okay. I think I've lost my Teams.
Text on Wednesday.
Okay, there. All right, good. So if we have Alex from the business community, sir, do you have anything that you want to add or change or comment on?
No, I know you said this, Margaret, but just to reiterate, this is for all, after this, law is enacted, this is all for businesses that will pay out in the future.
Correct, it's a going forward law.
Yeah, and these certificates, so the certificate themselves, is there a draft of it currently? Yeah.
We need to put that together. We did have a version, but I will work on something. And Tom will try and get that for the full council for next week, so that they have it. Although the full council may need to wait until the next one for yeah, that will be a fairly straightforward thing. We have a form where they have to delineate how many, and it's going to be, this cannot be more than their fourth, either in operation as language in the law states, in operation, or they have applications in or plans in another location, etc. So, yeah.
Great.
And it should be, I think it should be fairly seamless.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so we're going to.
Margaret, I do have a question. I'm sorry. Just to be
Yep.
clear, is this every new business has to put in for a certificate of compliance? Is that what's happening?
Yes.
Okay.
You have a concern with that?
No, I might, before it goes to the formal council, I might just play with some of the language a little bit to get it a little bit clearer. I also have to fix the formatting for formal introduction, to put it in lines with the local law, but that's the only thing I just wanted to clarify.
Also, Crystal, when I was reviewing it myself, I have my own little version of it. I noticed a few things where there were still strike throughs that should not be there, that I removed and highlighted. So I can send you, well, you probably picked up on all of those already. So I don't need to.
Well, anything that you've got, go ahead and send it to me too, and I'll make sure it gets compared for the final one that goes. Okay.
All right, so that we can close out from the legal committee. It will go to full council. Our next item is the film law. This again is something that started in the last council. Okay, just started in the last council. Theo, I believe, originally drafted this with Crystal. The main change that was made to this was to, and this again was input from professionals in the field and people in the business community, was to include language relating to still photography. So the version that I sent out has track changes in it, so you can see where it says request for film and shoot photographs in the city. And then none of the exceptions relating to something that's being done to, a city-based piece that's being done, that's still in there. But in terms of still photography, one of the reasons that had not been included before was, as I understood it, that it would be difficult to, if somebody's just taking a photograph or a photo club is taking photographs, that would be difficult. So I added language in here to specify, let me go down to it. If you go under 132/3, permit required, and it has, film permit required, that language is the same for the actual, for video filming. And then I added pretty much the same paragraph, but relating to still photography permit required. And it puts in where a crew of 2 or more is engaged as defined. So that would cover photo shoots where you have a lighting technician or somebody other than the photographer. And I think that's probably all we need to put in there. Alex, are you okay with that?
Yes.
Otherwise, it is not really very different. We left in entity producing a film or films or still photography for the purpose of producing promoting Hudson, New York is an exemption that does not need a permit. There was one thing that was flagged as a comment. I'm going to find that. Oh, aerial drone was added, which I think was a good addition. That was a good catch. We didn't have that before. I'm trying to find, Alex, the section where one of your reviewers didn't understand why there was language about getting permission from private owners to film. Yeah. Okay, so if you go to section 132/7, additional restrictions. Item E, the permittee is required to obtain the property owner's permission, consent, and/or lease for use of property not owned or controlled by the city. So, Crystal, the comment that came back on this paragraph was that since this is actually about filming relating to public property or city property, why is that paragraph necessary? I think that was the comment, Alex, from one of your people. That this is about filming in public areas. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I don't think
Sorry.
Chris, I don't think we can restrict anyone, as long as if they're in public, they can take pictures of someone, they can't be on somebody's private property. But if it's in public.
Right, but the purpose of this, was to have a permit process if someone was using public space or, non-private locations. But we have a paragraph in here now that says, if you're filming on private property, you have to get permission from the property owner. So this would mean that if somebody was doing a film shoot, say in somebody's backyard, right? On private property, we have language in here saying that implies that they have to have a permit to do that and they have to get the property owner's permission. And the comment that we got from the professionals who reviewed this, the video professionals who reviewed it was that since this is all about, permits required for, filming on public property, why is that paragraph necessary?
It isn't.
Yeah, no, I would agree. It's not. I went back to double check where the initial permit was required. No, it can come out.
Okay, so I think if you could just delete that, I left it in for tonight's discussion. But if we could just delete that because they don't need a permit to film on private property and they have to figure it out with the owner. Otherwise, I think, as I mentioned to Alex, we kept the, one change we did make, Crystal, was, initially it had been listed as, application for a film to be completed with applicable fees no less than 30 days prior. And the recommendation was to change that, no less than 72 hours prior to the commencement. So, I think that's reasonable. And we did keep in the 1 business day if there are any changes in the plan, because the mayor's office or the city hall would not be open over a weekend, so they can't make a change on a Saturday. And get that modified for a Sunday filming. Otherwise, I think it's good to go.
The only question I would have on there, and that would be, this would be more of a question for the mayor's office, is if there were, or the city clerk's office, whoever's reviewing these applications, is just to make sure that 72 hours gives them enough time to review everything prior and issue the permit prior to commencing filming.
Okay.
And when you're talking about 72 hours, because that could also, we would have to clarify, 72 hours, the way it's written in here, is going to encompass over a weekend as well. So that could end up giving, you don't
Yeah.
have, because it's not set to business days. It's not 3 business days, it's 72 hours. So
Should-
that
should-
could also shorten the time frame to review to make sure that everything necessary is in the application materials and to issue that permit.
So we need to change that to business days, first of all, and then we need to check with the mayor's office to see if 3 business days is sufficient or whether it needs to be closer to 5. I think 30 was excessive.
I think 5 would be, because, I mean, most of the time, this stuff is planned ahead of time, right? So I think 5 business days should be sufficient, right?
But we can check with the mayor's office and modify that to 5.
Well, for mass gathering permits, there is a time scheme, but there's always, the mayor can allow something like within 24 hours.
So
So
let's
you
keep
don't
it
see
3
the business
business.
days as a problem?
No, I don't think it's a lot.
Okay, all right. So let's, we'll just change it to 3 business days, Crystal. And other than that, I don't think that there was anything, anything else on that. Otherwise, it was good. So with those slight changes, this can, go to the council. Okay? Now for dogs. So this is new. And Gary, he's not online, is he, Tom?
Yeah.
I know Gary had been looking at this and Crystal put together a law relating to it. So, Crystal, why don't you just walk us through what you have put together here?
Sure, this law is based on what I had pulled from other municipalities. It was already introduced to the council. It essentially makes it so that restraints are limited for animals on any sort of stationary object. So I know a question came up at the council level as to whether runners would be included. They are not included in this. It is essentially tying them to a tree or, tying them to some sort of stationary object. What was initially introduced to the council had a 1 hour restriction. It was just something I'd grabbed from one of the laws. I know that was a concern for the council. There was talk about making it 2 hours or 3 hours. And that's, I have no preference either way. I know all of those are encompassed in various laws. Some do 2, some do 3 hours. And then this law itself, if someone violates the law, it would be enforceable by either police officers or your dog enforcement officer, your animal enforcement officer.
Krista, so I did look at some of this stuff. So some of the law said there'll be, could be, depending on weather conditions, you could be also, charged with neglect if they're
Yes.
out and things like that. Is that part of this law?
It is part of this law. It's something that I had taken from some of the other laws that I had found in other municipalities. So essentially, if the temperature is below freezing, or if it's above 90 degrees, that's going to be a situation where they could be charged with neglect. And it's there's also the catch-all if it's the conditions are not considered appropriate as set forth under New York State Agricultural and Markets Law. That's absolutely a part of this.
So I also,
One of the
There's
things that,
also,
yeah,
sorry, just to add on to that, there's also restrictions on ages. So essentially, animals that are less than 6 months of age, they cannot be put out on any sort of, they can't be tethered to a stationary object at all. Animals that are injured or sick, animals that are, nursing, nursing dogs, they can't be tethered. So there's that additional restriction in it as well.
so one of the things that Dominic had brought up, but we were talking before the meeting, I don't know what's in the agricultural law, but this certainly covers heat and wind chill advisories, but what if has wind, what about, torrential rain, etc.? Would that be covered under conditions not appropriate?
I believe it would be covered under, go ahead.
the law I did write, the kind of was specific to the weather conditions, kind of set, heat advisories, wind, tornado, all those advisories, if they are in effect, then they can't be outside.
Could we
Yes.
make it to be any severe weather advisory? Rather than
Yes, it could
just-
be, yeah, we can broaden that, so it's just severe weather advisories.
It does say National Weather Service has issued heat, wind chill, watch or warning. So watch and warning would include rain and wind. It's not, but I think if we just make it clear that inclement weather is a thing.
And
Okay.
Chris,
I'll add that.
the other thing, it says, 6 months and old. So the law I saw that the 6 months and younger can be tethered, but they must be supervised because a lot of puppies get out, right? So the law I saw said if it's 6 months and they can be, but must be supervised at all times.
We can add that. I mean, I had grabbed this. I can't remember which municipality that I had grabbed that specific language from, but we can add it with supervision. I don't think that's a problem at all.
And then a couple of other ones were, and I'm trying to remember if I'm looking, was the tethering near like pools. Got to make sure that they can't be so far because they can drop into a pool and drown. Or if the fence is too low, they can jump over a fence and end up strangling too. So I'm trying to read if that was specific in terms of in our law for obstacles or for some restrictions.
Well, there is, if you look under, all right, so there's subsection E, which says that no person shall tether, leash, etc. And then it has that would allow the restrained dog to move over an object, including any fencing, barrier, or edge that could result in strangulation or injury to the dog. So it's a broader language than just, than being specific to pools or fencing.
But I mean, a pool is different than an edge, right? Because it's, if the pool is full, I can see people say, that's not an edge. You know what I mean? So, especially, in-ground pools.
Yeah, we can be more specific. That's not a problem.
I think, yeah, if you're adding it under 8E8 would cover, I think all it needs to have added, I think, is the pool issue. Because it does cover fencing and so forth.
And Crystal, what was the in terms of the materials for the tethering, the ends are the one I saw was both ends should be, the spring ends, so they have give. Is that identified in ours?
No,
I don't think it is. I don't think it is that specific. I'm looking at it now. No, I don't see that it is. I mean, we can certainly add that in.
Yeah, the one law said that both ends have to have springs, the springs on it.
Okay.
And also I saw we have for the collars, we have what we can't, but what about what we can? Right? Because I saw one that says recommended collars that are safe. We have the ones that aren't safe, basically.
I don't love the idea of recommending collars that are safe. Because I think that you're putting yourself out there on a limb. You would have to have some expertise in that to say that
Okay.
these are considered or certified safe. I'd rather be more specific about what we're not going to allow as opposed to we're going to recommend you do this.
Okay. Well, and I apologize, the one they said was an actual type.
And
It wasn't a breakaway, right? But it
That's
was an
what
actual-
would concern me. I would think that you would want some I wouldn't be comfortable just relying on another municipality's law for that. I think you would need some sort of special, someone with some sort of expertise in it to say that this brand is. I mean, we hear it all the time when there's products liability issues later on, and you don't want to be in a situation where someone's pointing to the city of Hudson's law saying, we were told to use this.
Yeah, well, it wasn't a brand, I apologize, because I got it from it was out of Buffalo, the academy, the attorney law clinic, I think, in Buffalo, under pets, and they had a whole big thing, and it wasn't a brand, it was kind of like a certain, kind of like, instead of spring loaded, it was a certain type of collar that prevents choking. So, but I just happened to read through it, in terms of some of these things that were, like I said, I saw what we can have, which is great. All those that you listed, you're right, they're spot on with what I read out of this, law clinic.
the other thing, Dominic, I think about, saying what's recommended is that things change over time. There could be something in the future that, we're not addressing, so just being specific about what it is.
Right.
It's not acceptable, I think, that would be my preference.
Okay.
Is there any reason we cannot change the word dog to animal?
Animals broad. So when you're talking an animal, you're talking, rabbits, you're talking goats, you're talking whatever type of animal you've got out there. And some animals are more able to live in certain situations than you have others. And I know this was something that was discussed at the council level when this first came in as to whether it was something too broad. And there were some concerns from council members that if you start going too broad, then you're going to have to start questioning, what conditions are okay for certain types of animals and what aren't, such as like the, when you get into like the weather, the weather advisories or what they should be, tethered to. You can, I just think that we should do a little bit more looking into it then. I don't think this should just go off to the council as is. I think we might need to focus on what we're defining it as. Is that appropriate for all animals? I think we need to broaden the look into this then.
The only ones that I saw that was different in the ones that I saw, they added a cat. That's the only thing they added
I've never
was
seen a
dog
cat.
and cat. That's the only thing they added.
I've seen people walking cats down Warren Street, and I'm not kidding, on the leash.
So Ronnie,
some
Ronnie,
carrots.
do you have any thoughts on this?
I mean, I don't own any pets myself, so I'm not really an educated person to speak on this really, aside from
So what I
a
would
layman's perspective.
propose is that this was brought to us as a dog situation by a member of the public. The police department could do nothing about the situation because there was nothing on the books in Hudson prohibiting what was going on. And the SPCA or whatever cruelty group that she outreached to needed to have something in the police department, et cetera. And so I think I would recommend that we have a good thing here that relates to the specific issue of dogs, which is that's the vast majority of animals that you see tethered, that we go forward and we address this and we take it to the full council so that we have something that addresses this. And then if we want to take up further laws relating to other animals, we could do that. But I agree with Crystal that it becomes, this is very specific about, the tether can weigh more than 12.5% of the dog's weight, not to exceed 15 pounds for any dog and so forth. You really have to get into some very detailed things here if you wanted to go to all animals.
I agree.
So let's move.
Margaret,
Yeah.
before we move it to the full council, I wonder if I apologize if you've already mentioned this. Have we reached out to like Animal Kind or the Humane Society to see their thoughts on it?
They don't really. Gary did, and they don't.
Gary did.
Yeah.
Okay.
No one, I reached out I even reached out to a couple of veterinarians and they didn't return my calls. So, I think a veterinarian would be a good resource, to this. And it kind of, I think people don't, I don't know, liability. The only one that I found with a lot of information was the Buffalo University Law School with resources. But there's, I think there's only 23 states that has this. So the information, and it varies depending on where you live. Southern states are a little different than northern states. So I think it all depends on your climate and, what your current issue is. We're a city, right? So, we're all a little different than what they're dealing with, what we're dealing with.
But there's also no New York State standard. It's set at the municipality level. When I first started looking into this, as Crystal has indicated, there are some that are 3 hours, there's some that are 1 hour. And that was the problem that this member of the public ran into because she was trying to intervene for a dog that had been chained up for quite some time, and they couldn't do anything about it because there was nothing in our code that said that this was a problem. So I would like to move it to the full council. Are you okay with that, Dominic?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Jenny?
Yeah.
Before you do, what do you want to change the hour limit to? Because I know that the concern originally was 1 hour was too short. Do you want to do 2, 3?
I think 1 hour is reasonable. Why is 1 hour too short?
Well, that's what was the discussion at the council meeting. That's why I wanted to just verify.
I think it's too short. And honestly, like if you have a meeting with someone, they're allergic to dogs or your dog bites and you want to put it outside for 2 hours while you have your meeting, like I think it's okay. Like,
It becomes more unenforceable the longer you make it.
That's correct.
okay.
I was leaning towards 0 tethering, but Crystal gave me some specific instances of when there might be a legitimate need to have a dog tethered for a short period of time. So
Yeah, they said that if certain people, like some were like, certain, like 15 minutes, as you're doing your task. If, what I mean, there's limits, like an hour is good because if your task is being done, whatever that task is, it is tethered while you're doing that task, that temporary task.
that's pretty.
I've seen a lot of that in wording about you tethering as you're doing other tasks, temporary tasks.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about yards with no fences, basically.
Ronnie, are you okay with moving this to the council?
That's fine by me.
You're okay, Jen? Yeah. Okay, so we will send that to the council. I think, Crystal, the only thing we needed to put in was a reference to pools. Is that correct?
Spring-loaded leashes, the under supervision for the under 6 months Those are the three items I have to change. Oh, and adding the language in the national weather.
Well, yeah,
Section.
broadening the weather restriction, yeah. Okay. All right, so now we can move to speed limits. So, several months ago, we contracted with Creighton Manning to do a traffic study relating to speed limit reduction. You have their draft report. This is their second draft, and I think it'll probably, once the council accepts it, it will be a final report. I do have some follow-up with Creighton Manning on a couple of the observations in here. Basically, they took 3 different routes in Hudson to be representative of the city, state, because that's a very urban, high, densely populated street. 9G, because that has its own peculiarities, and Harry Howard, because that has a more suburban look to it, and it's also the school district is up there. So they did these speed tests to see, the methodology that they look at is the standard is to look at what percentile, what speed is the 85th percentile driving at, and so forth, to determine. The logic in that is to determine at what speed people feel comfortable driving. And so in looking at this, not surprising to any of us, very hard people are driving. If you look at table
165 months.
If you look at the table 1, very hard, the 85th percentile is 44 miles an hour. In general, they, just doing it on a percentile basis, they would have recommended, purely based on that, would have been a 40 mile an hour, but they did not see that it should be raised. It's also a high pedestrian and bike activity route. And in our discussions with them, they agreed with us. And if you look at the map that is in the report, they have all of Hudson with the exception, which I'll speak to in a moment, of 23B9G. I'll talk about that in a second. But I don't know, are you able to pull up documents by any chance?
No.
Okay. In the report, there's a map that outlines. I'm just going to open the report right now. I have this in front of me. Page 10. So their third map basically highlights the entire city of Hudson. It's on electronic page 10 of the report. And that is the area, within that area would be 25 miles an hour, is their recommendation for that. And there is a little stretch outlined in blue, which is 9G down to Power Avenue. The issue there is that as you enter the city of Hudson, the speed limit in Greenport is 55 miles an hour. That stretch of road before you get to Power Avenue is very rural. There's no residential or anything else there. And going from 55 to 25 is not advisable. The rationale, which Jason and I discussed with them on using power as the point at which you drop to 25. We would have a reduction, I believe, to 35 at 9G and then down to 25 when you get to Power Avenue. The rationale for that is a lot of traffic turns right on Power to come into Hudson via the courthouse and so forth. And we need to have a city speed limit sign before someone turns off on Power, because otherwise they would miss it. And then they wouldn't realize that within the city of Hudson, it's 25 miles an hour. That's part of the rationale, but also that's pretty much where you begin to get into more residential areas. The other recommendation that they had in this report in looking at this, at the, school zone, the speed zone for the school, currently it is very long. It was created, we met with, police department and talked about this a little with them. When that was first set up, John led into the school. And so there was a really large school zone that incorporated all of the schools within the city. So they are recommending, and currently the length of the school zone exceeds, state guidelines. So they are recommending a defined school zone, for the high school, and it's a defined, school zone for MC Smith. They also are recommending that we have clear signage regarding the beginning and the end of the school zone, for both of them. Because at the moment, the end school zone, as you're coming into Hudson, with the high school, I guess on your right, as you're coming into Hudson, there's no clear delineation of the end of the school zone. It's not very clear. So they're recommending clarifying that, tightening the school zone. And, you know, again, based upon whether people are coming by car or by bus, etc. You know, you could look at having a 25-mile-an-hour zone there rather than reducing it to 20. But given the dynamics of, you know, in discussion with them, given the dynamics of how children are actually arriving at the school, they agreed that a 20-mile-an-hour school zone is appropriate for both of those areas. That map is on electronic page 9 of the document. So basically, their recommendation is go to a 25-mile-an-hour zone for the citywide, with the city beginning at Power Avenue when you're coming in on 9G. As you come down Fairview, as you know, as you're entering Hudson from Fairview, on the right-hand side of the road, it's Hudson, and on the left-hand side, it's Greenport, until you get past the Monroe car place. I think that's, it's beyond, you know, Parkwood and so forth. Once you get beyond Monroe, then there is a, that's where there currently is a sign that says city speed limit 30 miles an hour. We do not have authority to change the speed limit, and it wouldn't be practical to change the speed limit on the stretch of Fairview that on one side is Hudson, the other side is Greenport. So that stretch would still remain at the Greenport speed limit, and then the city speed limit would begin where the current signage is indicating the 30-mile-an-hour zone. So that's where that would begin. So I do want him to clarify, because the language in his report does not match at the end, does not match what he actually recommended in his maps. So I mean, his recommendation is that we go to 25, and that there's nothing, and I think Kristen, you were looking at that, there's nothing to prevent us from doing this. I just want him to update some language at the end of the report and recommendations. So does anyone have any questions?
So in the school zone,
Yeah.
right? So does it stay 20 miles an hour, 24/7?
Excuse me?
Does it stay 20 miles an hour, or does, when there's, right now, the school zone technically is 20 miles an hour while there's school activities going on, right? So does that mean that at nighttime, does that, when there's nothing going on, does that go to 25 miles an hour? Or does it stay 20 miles an hour with that school zone at 20?
I would think it's just like it is now. It's 20 during school activities and then 25 after.
Yeah, right, okay. Well, right now it would be, right now it's 30, right?
Right.
So it would be diverting to the default 25. Great. I mean, I think it's great. I think that's one thing we are missing is that signage.
Yeah.
It should have been here a long time ago,
Yeah.
yeah.
When I'm coming down that way, because I don't know where the school zone ends, I just like wait until I'm way past it. Then I know.
Actually ends after you make the left turn on Johnson. It's still
It's still 20
school,
there.
zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Decided
thinking
to
more of
accommodate.
this curve here, when you're coming in this way.
Right, what do you saying, Catherine?
No, that's where I never know whether, like when I'm coming.
Oh, yeah.
When I'm coming
Right,
back.
when it goes
Yeah.
back to.
I'm going back
Yeah,
into
yeah.
Hudson, and there's the
Right.
fire regime is on the right and so forth, the fire, there's no sign.
Right, oh, yeah. Oh, now you can.
So would Paddock Place
Sorry?
Would Paddock Place be part, because right now there's no signage on Paddock Place behind, where the track is. Would that be part of that school zone?
He has, I have to look, I have to print off this and look at the exact street
map,
lines.
yeah.
But he has recommended, areas for the school zone.
Okay,
So mainly the issue with our school zone right now is that it exceeds, the recommendations. A document where it begins approximately the house number 56, 1,000 feet from the edge of the elementary school property. Does not appear to be any end school zone signage. There's another one at a speed limit at 184 at the very edge of the high school property, which
Yeah.
continues north onto Johnson and kind of Greenport. And so, he indicates that, in some cases, schools may have overlapping school zones. In such cases, the total length shall not exceed the number of schools times 1320 feet, which we currently exceed. In the case of Harry Hard, then he talks about percentiles. But he is recommending, the school zone, area appears to exceed 4,300 feet. Where MUTCD standards call for 1,200 school, feet, 1,200 feet school speed zone for elementary and 1,320 for high school. So that's, he's recommending 2 discrete zones that will fall within the guidelines, because currently we exceed them. And then have appropriate signage to indicate, where it begins and ends. Any other questions? Okay, so in that case, next steps is that this needs to go to the council. And it will be up to the council to, then, as he indicates, common council has authority to set and change speed limits in the city limits. Council should review this memo and if support or pass a resolution amending the local law and, with and in consultation with city attorney.
Should
Should
Crystal, craft something first at the same time, or?
Crystal, do you want to craft a resolution recommending, the reduction?
Well, so you can do a resolution recommending the reduction if you want to be formal with it, or you can just put in a local law, to adopt it. Margaret, I emailed you, you may not have seen it yet. I emailed you, I don't know, mid-afternoon. I already put together a draft local law. And
Okay.
the only thing that I needed for it were the street crossings to set the different, the 20 or the where it was going to stay like 30 to 35. I needed the exact street crossings to put in those subsections. But
can get-
otherwise, yeah, and what I did for that local law is because the city of Albany is doing this right now too.
Yep.
So I took a look at what they were doing, and essentially what they did, and I mimicked the same thing, except I also referenced our the evaluation that Creighton Manning did. Is I essentially took the legislative intent that went with the state statute and put that into the local laws findings, legislative intent and findings, and use that as kind of like the basis for adopting the law.
Okay. I did not, I was just reviewing documents this afternoon, so I'm sorry, I did not see that email. So
Oh,
Tom,
no, I figured as much, yeah.
so in terms of time, and I've also been working with Jason Foster on this, so he and I will make sure that we have the exact street crossings listed. In terms of timing, can this go to the council next week?
Yeah,
Okay, all right.
you're having the language in the law,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it's time to do it.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's the 4,000. Any objections to taking that to the council from the legal committee?
no,
Okay.
not at all. I'm
Great.
You appreciate that. As
Sorry.
Tom knows, it's totally overdue for me, yeah.
Yeah. So the last item, new business, before I ask public comment, I have gotten a number of requests from members of the public to revisit the short-term rental law and to take a look at exactly how that's framed and so forth. So I don't have anything to bring today, but on my agenda is to reach out to Michelle Tulo, and we now have a person who is looking at enforcement. I know that we've seen a reduction in in revenue. And we may have unregistered
Right.
short-term rentals.
Yes.
There are issues with the penalties associated with coming clean and saying that, yeah. So in between now and the next legal committee meeting, I'm going to do research with Michelle and her assistant. And to try to look at that and look at the penalties, we look at what we need to do.
Just to give some perspective, Marty, it's a tough lot of craft. And, you know, it's definitely could accommodate some change.
Yeah, so we're just gonna take it back, have another look, let's see if there's something we can do to, and particularly something we can do to make sure that people are actually gonna register. So, cause that's really critical.
Yeah.
Margaret,
Sorry, yes, Crystal?
sorry, just so you know, there were conversations started on that as well between Michelle, Andy, and myself a couple months ago. So there's definitely been some homework done already between, especially on Andy Howard's side and Michelle's side, on looking at enforcement and the registration side of things. So you know, that should be at least a starting point.
Good, thank you.
And what about the vacancy law, Margaret? Where are we at with the vacancy?
The vacancy law was with Ronnie and
Gary?
Ronnie and Gary. So Ronnie, do you have anything on that?
Not as of yet. I still have to, we can't match up our schedule, Gary and I, so far with summer. But once we can meet, we can move forward. Apologize about that.
You were gonna say something about talking.
I think that part of the reason revenue is down is that people have kind of turned away from Airbnb. That's true.
Okay.
There's been several articles written about that and,
The law covers all short-term rental. I'm not sure.
yeah, I understand that, but people aren't doing that as much.
Yeah, there's that.
Are they doing Airbnbs out of city and just coming into the city too, right? Because
Nowhere
Right.
are they, people think it's not a thing anymore.
Yeah.
They don't do it as much.
Not as popular.
It's not as fashionable.
Probably all seen in Barcelona, just completely out of.
Yeah.
After that, I understand.
So, want to ask if members of the public have anything they want to bring up to the committee? Yes, a member of public can speak.
On the topic of dogs.
Yes.
What exists, yeah, exactly, a little bit different, a little bit of the other end, so to speak. What exists in the city code as far as fines for those who don't hurt the dogs?
I find, it's just catching, you know, how do you catch people?
Yeah,
You have to have a police officer there when it happens.
so outside the box thinking, is it possible to deputize the parking attendants to write those types of tickets as well? No, it has to be from.
Good question, I mean. People want, yeah, it's funny, because this came up with, the enforcement things, and you have the police.
Mhm.
Force code, you know, I'm not sure you can do that.
There are
Crystal?
There are towns that actually, when you have to get a dog license. Once you get your dog license, you have to submit the dog's DNA. I'm not kidding, this is a real thing. It's happening near where my father lives. If the dog poops on the ground and they test for DNA, they then fine them $1,000.
Wow,
Well, you gotta, there's plenty of people who visit, so.
yeah, I think
That's
that
true.
probably.
A lot of you, I mean, weekend dogs are not, they're not flexible.
I would imagine those.
I have not had some dogs pooping
I know.
in front of my house
Yeah, it's been like that for sure.
Yeah.
So there's from a lot of residents, business person like, but yeah, then having.
I've seen it,
Yeah.
driving me crazy, but.
I mean, you would think now with the advent of all these security cameras, you would think that there'd be something there to.
You know, I don't think of people on that basis down there, I'm not sure.
I don't know if it's clear, right?
Crystal?
Video.
Do you think a video would be, would be allowed to to ticket someone for allowing a dog to poop on the curb?
I don't know the answer off the top of my head. I mean, I know they use videos for people that bypass school buses. And that's how they ticket those people. And I know you use them for, the vehicle and traffic cameras. But I
Yeah.
haven't heard of that situation happening before. So I don't know. I'd have to look.
Well, as an alternative, if not a, legal remedy, but maybe we can figure out together some way to do more signage.
There are a number of
The dispensers for, dispensers for bags. Maybe there's a.
Dispensers would be good. I think that's actually a good idea.
There's one on the corner of Fifth, there's one at the 78 Park, there's a bunch down at the other park.
Could attach them to every single trash can,
Right.
which would be great.
Just,
I think people would just go.
They don't care. Yeah, we know.
Any other comments from the public?
I'm sure everyone's glad to have it on their mind.
Just give an example, yeah.
So do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Second? Any seconds? So, we are adjourned. Thank you all very, very much.
Oh, yeah, there it is. Okay, so
Uh,
Where?
I think it was, there's do the pull down on leave the meeting, do that pull down,
Okay.
and then do end recording.
Okay. Oops.
End recording.
Is it there? It just says them meeting.
Oh, Michael showed me a pull down that where it stopped the recording.
Settings.
Well, if it doesn't go anywhere,
Yeah. It's
somebody can figure it out too. Apparently they had 24 hours of somebody's home.
That's funny.
Okay.
It seems to be still live, but not really. I mean, it's not.
What happens if you hit